You were taught to fight to win, to argue, to defend, to prove. But the people who truly dominate life don't fight. They don't raise their voices. They don't need to. Because real power isn't about confrontation. It's about control. Not control over others, but over yourself, your reactions, your emotions, your presence. When you learn to master that, you enter a different game entirely. The power game. And in this game, the one who remains calm always wins. The world is full of people desperate to prove something. They waste their energy trying to convince, trying to be seen, trying to win the approval of minds too distracted to even care. But those who understand silence, those who understand restraint, they operate on another frequency. They don't fight for attention. They become the gravitational force that pulls it in. Think about it. Every argument, every battle, every emotional outburst is a leak of energy. The more you fight, the more you show that you need to be understood. The more you explain yourself, the more you reveal that you fear being misunderstood. But the powerful don't explain. They don't argue. They don't justify. They act, and the world adjusts around them. Because when you stop playing the visible game of struggle, you start influencing the invisible one, the one made of perception, emotion, and fear. To win without fighting, you must understand this invisible battlefield. It exists in every interaction, every glance, every pause. When someone attacks you verbally, they're not seeking truth, they're seeking control. They want to provoke you to react, to make you reveal what shakes your balance. When you react, you lose. You show that they can touch something inside you. That's why the true masters of power never react instantly. They absorb, they observe. They respond only when the response serves their purpose. They know that energy moves where attention goes, and by refusing to give attention to provocation, they deny their opponent oxygen. What most people call peace is actually weakness disguised as calm. But what we're talking about is different. It's active stillness, a deliberate absence of chaos. It's the kind of peace that unnerves others because it shows no need. When you don't need to prove your worth, you become untouchable. That's the paradox of power. The less you fight for it, the more it bends toward you. History has shown it again and again. Those who maintain composure in the face of aggression always end up controlling the narrative. The one who keeps his tone steady, his face unreadable, his words few. That's the one who stays in command when others collapse. Because when emotions run high, reason evaporates. The crowd loses itself. But the individual who stays detached stands apart. And from that distance, he gains perspective, leverage, and control. To win without fighting, you must learn to see conflict not as something to engage in, but as something to manage. Let others waste their breath in chaos while you conserve your energy. Let them reveal their insecurity through their noise, while you reveal your strength through your silence. Fighting is an addiction for the weak. It's how they feel alive. But power is an addiction of the strong. It's how they stay in control. To play the power game, you must train yourself to see emotions as tools, not truths. Anger is a tool, but only when used consciously. Indifference is a shield, but only when real. Pretending to be calm is not control, it's repression, and people can sense the difference. Control must be genuine. It must come from understanding your own triggers so deeply that no one can weaponize them against you. The moment someone can make you explain yourself, justify your choices, or react emotionally, you've already given them influence. And influence is the currency of power. Never spend it cheaply. Every time you speak, you reveal your boundaries. Every time you argue, you reveal your fears. Every time you defend yourself, you reveal what matters to you. And that's how others learn to manipulate you. The powerful reveal nothing. They let others drown in assumptions. They let curiosity do the work. They understand that in silence, imagination fills the void, and imagination is always more powerful than explanation. To win without fighting, you must first conquer the need to be understood. You must let go of the childish impulse to make others see your side. The moment you realize that understanding is irrelevant to control, you gain an advantage that few ever achieve. People seek validation because they mistake it for connection. But validation is dependence in disguise. When you no longer seek it, you rise above those trapped by it. You start playing a game of energy, not words. Think of every argument you've ever had. What did it give you? Even when you won, what did you lose? Time, peace, dignity, control. You cannot fight mud without getting dirty, and when you argue with fools, you become one in their eyes. The art of power lies in redirection, not confrontation. When someone pushes, you don't push back. You step aside and let their own momentum undo them. The one who fights is predictable. The one who redirects is dangerous, because unpredictability creates tension, and tension creates respect. The mind fears what it cannot read. When they can't read you, they start to respect you. They call it mystery, but it's really control. Control of emotion, of reaction, of rhythm. You must learn to control rhythm, the tempo of interaction. Speak slower, pause longer, answer less. These are not passive acts, they're strategies. The person who controls rhythm controls perception. And perception is everything in the power game. That's why the greatest leaders in history rarely shouted. They spoke softly and slowly, forcing others to lean in. Power is not loud, it's magnetic. To win without fighting is to create an aura that makes others think twice before challenging you. Not because you threaten them, but because your calm makes them uncertain. The uncertain will always submit to the composed. In every social structure, the hierarchy is determined not by who speaks the most, but by who can afford to say the least. Because silence is luxury. It's the luxury of not needing to chase, not needing to convince, not needing to react. Most people don't realize how loud their desperation sounds. You can hear it in their tone, their pace, their need to fill every silence. They think noise equals strength, but in truth it's a confession of insecurity. Those who truly have power move slowly, think deeply, and reveal nothing. They let others reveal themselves through overexposure. This is how you win without fighting. You let them show their hand while you keep yours hidden. You become the mirror that reflects their chaos back to them. The longer they try to provoke you, the more they expose themselves. And the more they expose themselves, the more control you have. Because knowledge is power, and silence is how you collect it. Never forget, observation is the most underrated form of dominance. Everyone wants to be heard, but few understand the advantage of listening. When you listen, you gain data. When you speak, you give it away. This is why stillness is the weapon of the wise. It's not passivity, it's positioning. You position yourself above the chaos by refusing to be consumed by it. You let others waste their energy reacting, while you conserve yours for the moment that truly matters. That's how wars are won, not through endless attacks, but through patience, timing, and precision. The samurai understood this. They trained their entire lives not to fight more effectively, but to avoid unnecessary combat altogether. Because every battle, even the one you win, costs something. And the ultimate form of mastery is victory without cost. That is what it means to win without fighting. You become so attuned to human nature, so aware of patterns, that you dismantle conflict before it even begins. You speak less, move less, but influence more. You understand the psychological terrain so deeply that others walk exactly where you want them to, without realizing they've been guided. To play the power game, you must master 3 elements: perception, timing, and restraint. Perception allows you to see what others miss. Timing allows you to act when others hesitate. Restraint keeps you from ruining your advantage through emotion. These 3 combined form an invisible armor. People will test it. They will poke, provoke, and challenge you to break your silence. Don't. Because the moment you do, you confirm that they have power over you. You must become comfortable with misunderstanding, comfortable with silence, comfortable with distance. Because the one who can endure discomfort controls the dynamic. Weak people seek constant reassurance. Strong people find power in uncertainty. The more unpredictable your reactions, the more others tiptoe around you. That's psychological control. But this control must never turn into cruelty. It must remain detached, elegant, disciplined. True power doesn't humiliate. It humbles. It makes others reflect on themselves. The moment your silence becomes a mirror that makes others uncomfortable, you've entered the realm of influence. They will adjust their tone, their words, even their emotions to match your energy. That's the hidden dominance of composure. And the irony is that once you understand this, you start to see how easily people give away their power. You'll see it everywhere, in how they rush to reply to messages, how they over-explain, how they argue to protect their image. You'll see desperation disguised as confidence, arrogance masking insecurity, and noise trying to imitate strength. And you'll realize you don't have to fight to win, you just have to stay still long enough for others to destroy themselves. That's the secret rhythm of the power game. Those who control emotion control energy. Those who control energy control people. Those who control people control outcomes. And those who control outcomes rule the game without ever needing to play it in the open. Every person you meet is fighting a war you can't see. A war for validation, recognition, control. Most of them are losing because they don't understand that power isn't something you take. It's something you radiate. When you master the ability to win without fighting, you no longer chase power. You become the source of it. The world begins to orbit you because you move with intention, while others move with impulse. Power is the art of making others adjust to your tempo, your silence, your presence. The moment you rush, you've already lost your center. And once you lose your center, others sense it like blood in the water. They can't define it, but they feel it. That small tremor in your voice, that tiny crack in your calm, that slight hesitation before you speak. Humans are instinctively drawn to stability because it's rare. The one who remains emotionally unshaken becomes magnetic in a world addicted to chaos. People start to confide in you, follow you, rely on you, not because you asked, but because your stillness becomes their anchor. This is the invisible architecture of power. Control of your internal world so completely that your external world bends around it. To achieve that, you must first kill the reflex to fight every perceived threat. Most people confuse reaction with strength. They think that standing up for themselves means meeting fire with fire, but the truth is, that's exactly what the manipulator wants. Because the moment you react, you confirm their relevance, you feed their ego with your attention. The art of invisible power lies in starving their need for importance. You don't ignore them to be petty. You ignore them because they are no longer a part of your energetic economy. Every response costs energy, and power is the management of energy. The weak spend it, the strong invest it, and the wise conserve it. Learn to measure your responses as if they were currency, because they are. The person who reacts emotionally to every provocation will always remain poor in influence, but the one who chooses silence with precision becomes wealthy in control. In this game, silence is not absence, it's strategy. It creates tension, and tension breeds respect. People are addicted to resolution, and when you withhold it, you dominate their thoughts. They replay your silence in their minds, trying to decode what it means. That's psychological control. You become the riddle they can't solve, and the more they think about you, the more influence you gain without lifting a finger. But this level of control demands discipline, a kind of emotional training that most will never attempt, because it feels unnatural at first. We are conditioned to respond, to explain, to seek closure. To win without fighting, you must deprogram yourself from this cultural addiction to emotional expression. You must stop seeking fairness from people who thrive on imbalance. You must stop expecting logic from those who weaponize emotion. When someone attacks you, withdraw from the emotional arena. Do not argue, do not defend, observe. Behind every insult is insecurity. Behind every provocation is a plea for significance. Let them reveal themselves, and you will see that their aggression is never personal. It's projection. They're fighting their own shadows, not you. The moment you understand that, their power dissolves. You realize they were never an opponent, just noise. And noise only has power when you listen. The greatest warriors of history, from the Stoics of Rome to the Zen masters of Japan, all taught the same principle. Mastery of self precedes mastery of others. The battlefield is always internal first. The outer conflicts are just reflections of the inner ones. Every time you conquer the impulse to react, you strengthen your inner fortress. Every time you let go of the need to explain, you reinforce your authority. Because the powerful don't persuade, they set the frame. They define the meaning of interaction without saying a word. Their calm becomes law, and the more unpredictable you become, the more others begin to orbit your gravity. This isn't manipulation, it's mastery. Manipulation seeks to control others through deceit. Mastery controls the self so deeply that others naturally align. That's the essence of winning without fighting. You stop pushing against the world and start pulling it quietly toward your rhythm. This requires detachment, not coldness, but clarity. Detachment means seeing things as they are, not as your emotions paint them. It means understanding that conflict often serves the ego more than the goal. The ego loves to fight because it fears irrelevance. But when you dissolve the ego's need for recognition, peace stops being weakness and becomes weaponry. You become ungovernable. No one can blackmail you with emotions because you've taken ownership of them. You stop being predictable, and predictability is what your enemies rely on. They study your patterns to anticipate your moves, but when you operate from inner calm, your patterns disappear. You become unreadable, and what people can't read, they can't control. They start second-guessing themselves, doubting their own power. They begin to adjust their tone around you, lower their volume, seek your approval, all without realizing why. You didn't fight them. You didn't argue. You simply controlled yourself so completely that they started controlling themselves in your presence. That's the silent exchange of dominance. The paradox of invisible power is that it makes others feel like they're choosing to follow when, in reality, they're being guided. You let them believe it was their idea. That's why the most effective leaders in history rarely demanded obedience. They inspired it. They made people want to align with them because resistance felt unnatural. To reach that level, you must develop what I call energetic gravity. Gravity cannot be forced, it's cultivated. It comes from consistency, self-respect, and emotional restraint. The more stable you are internally, the stronger your gravitational pull. Others feel it subconsciously. They trust your energy because it doesn't fluctuate with circumstance. You become the calm eye in every storm, the reference point everyone measures themselves against. This doesn't mean you never act. It means you choose your moments. You wait until the noise burns itself out, and then you strike. Not from emotion, but from precision. One decisive move after long observation carries more impact than 100 frantic reactions. That's how you win without fighting, by learning the patience of power. Power isn't in motion, it's in timing. You let others exhaust themselves, expose themselves, burn their resources. And when the time comes, you act from strength, not from survival. The enemy of mastery is urgency. Urgency makes you chase outcomes that were already coming to you. It makes you lose leverage by acting before the moment ripens. The wise understand that timing is everything. They don't resist the flow of events. They shape it through patience. Every delay becomes an advantage, every silence a preparation. The weak want victory now. The powerful want victory that lasts. That's why they can wait. Waiting isn't passivity. It's strategy disguised as stillness. In that stillness, your perception sharpens. You start to see patterns others miss. You notice the subtle shifts in tone, the unspoken motives behind words, the way people expose their priorities through their impatience. You learn that most people destroy their position not because they're wrong, but because they can't stay quiet long enough to stay right. Their need to prove ruins their leverage. But when you can wait, truly wait, your influence grows in the silence between moments. This is the heart of the power game, to win not by confrontation, but by contrast. You let others drown in their noise while your calm becomes the proof of your strength. They react, you observe, they chase, you attract, they explain, you imply, they exhaust themselves, you evolve. That's how power shifts, not through visible struggle, but through unseen endurance. To win without fighting is to master the art of letting others reveal their weakness while you reveal nothing. You make stillness your weapon and perception your shield. You understand that the true enemy is not the opponent in front of you, but the chaos inside of you. Once that's controlled, the outer world follows. You stop needing to fight because your very presence becomes the declaration of victory. People feel it when you enter the room, the calm certainty that you're not competing. You're commanding. You don't demand respect, you evoke it. You don't intimidate, you influence. You don't chase outcomes, you shape them through your energy. That's the power game in its purest form, invisible elegant, decisive. The less you fight, the more others reveal their desperation to win, and in that desperation they lose themselves. You simply wait, watch, and move with precision when the time is right. That is how power is maintained without violence, how control is exercised without force. The one who controls themselves controls the world around them. That's not philosophy, that's strategy. Power is not taken, it's absorbed. It flows toward the one who doesn't compete for it. When you stop trying to win, the dynamic reverses. People sense something different in you, an energy that doesn't chase, that doesn't need validation to exist. This is psychological dominance, not control through aggression, but through presence. The ability to exist so firmly within your own energy that others subconsciously yield to it. Most people live reactively. They mirror emotions. If someone raises their voice, they raise theirs. If someone withdraws, they chase. It's automatic, it's not strength, it's programming. The powerful break that pattern. They stop being mirrors and become walls, unmoved, unshaken, unreadable. The one who cannot be read controls the one who must guess, and the one who must guess obeys. That is the first law of winning without fighting, unpredictability. Never be predictable in your emotions, your timing, or your words. Predictability is control surrendered. Once people can anticipate your reactions, they can manipulate you. They will press the same emotional buttons over and over again because you taught them that those buttons work. The strong remove those buttons completely. They train themselves to feel everything but reveal nothing. That's the real meaning of composure. Not numbness, but awareness without exposure. Every time you reveal an emotional reaction, you're giving someone a map to your weaknesses. When you remain still, their map becomes useless. They lose their advantage, and in confusion they retreat. This is what psychological warfare looks like in silence. You win because they can no longer find the battlefield. They don't know where to attack because you've erased every visible target. You've removed the noise that gives them confidence. You've forced them into introspection. And that's where most people lose. They can fight you, but they cannot fight themselves, so they start to implode. The more you withhold reaction, the more their aggression turns inward. They question themselves, their power, their importance. You've flipped the dynamic. You haven't fought them. You've made them fight their own insecurity. That's power. But to wield it, you must first conquer your addiction to reaction. Because reaction feels good. It gives the illusion of control. It's ego disguised as strength. But real control feels uncomfortable. It feels like swallowing fire without showing pain. It feels like silence when your pride screams for a response. It's not glamorous. It's discipline. The kind of discipline that makes others mistake your restraint for superiority. And in a way it is, because control is superiority. The modern world glorifies loudness, aggression, visibility. But all of that is performative power. Real power operates in silence, influence, subtlety. It's the difference between the storm and the gravity that holds the world together. One makes noise, the other rules everything quietly. To win without fighting, you must learn to channel your energy inward instead of outward. When provoked, don't react, analyze. Ask yourself, what is this person trying to gain by disturbing my balance? If they're seeking attention, silence is punishment. If they're seeking control, indifference is defeat. If they're seeking validation, absence is destruction. Every act of restraint becomes a strike they cannot see. You don't need to swing to wound. Your silence cuts deeper than any word because it denies them what they crave most. Reaction. People who thrive on control can't stand calmness. It reflects their own chaos back at them. They call you cold because they can't manipulate you. They call you detached because they can't pull you in. But what they're really saying is, I can't control you, and that scares me. Understand this. The more emotional someone is, the more they reveal. Emotion exposes motive, and motive is vulnerability. That's why emotional control is not just a virtue, it's a weapon. When everyone else is drowning in impulse, the one who breathes slowly becomes the leader. Because in times of chaos, people don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the calmest presence. The psychology of dominance rests on this truth. People confuse peace with powerlessness until they feel its gravity. They mistake your silence for weakness until they realize it cannot be moved. That's when fear appears, not fear of harm, but fear of exposure. Your calm becomes their mirror, and in it they see themselves, desperate, reactive, uncentered. The powerful never say, "I am in control." They simply are. And because they are, the world organizes itself around them. You must understand that dominance has nothing to do with aggression and everything to do with energy. It's about how your internal world dictates the external. When you walk into a room, your energy announces you before your words do. If your energy is frantic, people treat you like chaos. If your energy is centered, people treat you like order. That's not mysticism, it's psychology. Humans subconsciously adapt to the emotional tone of whoever appears most certain. Certainty commands obedience. That's why confidence, not arrogance, is power's language. Confidence says, "I am not here to prove. I am here to exist." But confidence without composure is just noise. True confidence whispers. It doesn't need to be heard, because it's felt. That's the essence of invisible dominance. You become the steady rhythm in a world of static. People will project calmness onto you, strength, mystery, all because you chose to master silence. But this mastery comes at a cost. To win without fighting, you must become comfortable being misunderstood. You must let people think you're distant, arrogant, cold. They will create stories about your silence because they need an explanation for what they can't control. Let them. Their discomfort is your confirmation. The moment you feel the urge to explain yourself, remember, explanation is submission. You owe no one clarity about who you are or why you choose silence. Your mystery is your leverage. Once they understand you completely, you lose your power. Keep something hidden, not secrets, but silence. Keep a space within yourself that no one can access. That private, unexplainable stillness is your fortress. People will feel it without knowing why, and that's what keeps their respect. Power demands that you cultivate this private center, a place untouched by praise or criticism, because both are traps. Praise makes you dependent on approval. Criticism makes you reactive to judgment. When you detach from both, you become untouchable. That's the foundation of psychological dominance. To win without fighting, you must learn to feed on solitude. Solitude is not loneliness, it's recalibration. It's where your power regenerates. The world drains those who are always seen, always speaking, always performing. But those who withdraw strategically recharge their influence. Absence amplifies value. That's why the powerful disappear often. They know that constant presence breeds familiarity, and familiarity kills respect. Distance sharpens desire. Mystery multiplies perception. You must learn when to vanish, and not out of fear, but out of control. Leave before they expect it. Return before they forget. That rhythm keeps you above the reach of familiarity. People will crave your presence precisely because it's rare. This is how you win without confrontation, through the psychology of presence and absence. Presence creates impact. Absence creates value. Together, they form the unbreakable rhythm of dominance. But remember, power gained through mystery must be sustained through discipline. If your silence turns into arrogance, you lose balance. If your detachment turns into apathy, you lose awareness. The key is equilibrium, calm but alert, detached but observant, silent but intentional. When you reach that balance, you no longer play the power game, you become the game itself. Others adjust to your pace, your tone, your absence, your timing. You stop fighting for control because everything around you naturally aligns. You have transcended reaction. You are no longer in competition. You have become the reference point. There is a point in the power game where you stop seeking to control and begin to command. The difference is invisible yet absolute. Control relies on effort. Command relies on energy. Control requires you to push, to plan, to enforce. Command makes others align with you naturally, as if it were their own decision. To reach that level, you must understand the subtle mechanics of rhythm, distance, and silence. These three form the trinity of invisible authority. Rhythm sets the emotional pace, distance maintains psychological elevation, and silence creates the aura of inevitability. Together, they make you appear larger than life, not through illusion but through discipline. When people feel that your calm remains unbroken by their chaos, they unconsciously surrender to your rhythm. Every human interaction has a tempo. Some people speak fast to dominate the moment. Others pause too long out of insecurity. But the powerful choose their pace deliberately. They slow down the tempo of interaction, forcing others to adjust. This is rhythm manipulation. When you speak slowly, others must listen longer. When you pause intentionally, tension builds. When you lower your tone, others lean in. You're no longer reacting, you're conducting. The entire room begins to breathe in your cadence. This is not performance, it's awareness. You know that the mind of the reactive is fast, but the mind of the dominant is slow. Because the slower you move, the more control you have over each moment. Quickness is rarely strength. It's often fear disguised as decisiveness. The strong don't rush. They calculate, then act once. That's why their moves feel fatal. They don't scatter energy, they condense it. This condensed energy is felt even in silence. People can sense it when they speak to you. That unspoken weight behind your eyes, that calm certainty that you've already seen the outcome before they finish their sentence. They might call it intuition, but it's really discipline disguised as instinct. You have trained your awareness to read the room, to feel the energy shifts, to measure timing, and because you are silent, you hear what others miss, you see what they overlook. This heightened perception becomes your weapon. Silence gives you X-ray vision. You begin to see the real motives behind words, the insecurity behind laughter, the weakness behind arrogance. Most people reveal everything while trying to hide something. Their eyes flicker when they lie, their tone tightens when they fear exposure, their posture betrays their confidence. The one who observes without judgment learns to predict, and the one who predicts rules. You can win any game when you already know the other player's move, but that knowledge comes only through stillness. The impatient never see the pattern because they're too busy trying to create noise. Silence is where power listens, and listening is how you control the narrative before it begins. Yet silence alone isn't enough. You must also understand the role of distance. Distance protects value. The more accessible you are, the less weight your presence carries. Familiarity kills mystique, and mystique is the essence of respect. If people can reach you easily, they stop valuing access. They stop adjusting their tone, stop measuring their words. The powerful maintain controlled distance, close enough to influence, far enough to remain untouchable. They appear when impact is needed, and disappear before saturation begins. This creates a psychological tension that keeps others in a state of curiosity and anticipation. Curiosity is control. Anticipation is dominance. The human mind is addicted to the unknown. It fills silence with imagination. When you limit your exposure, you let imagination do your work. People begin to overestimate you, glorify you, fear disappointing you, not because you demanded it, but because you made your presence scarce. Scarcity breeds reverence. This is why kings appeared rarely, why great thinkers lived in solitude, why true leaders don't explain themselves publicly. They understand that distance multiplies perception. The less you show, the more people project, and projection always exaggerates power. But distance must be strategic. Too much of it creates detachment. Too little erases mystique. You must master the art of calibrated proximity. Be close enough to be relevant, distant enough to be desired. This balance creates authority that feels effortless. When people sense that you can vanish at any moment, they value your attention. They weigh their words. They try to please your silence. That's control without command. You've taught them that your energy is not guaranteed, so they compete to earn it. Now your absence has become your weapon. You can influence people through withdrawal alone. This is the stage of silent command, where your presence disciplines others without confrontation. They regulate their own behavior because your energy sets the tone. But this kind of influence requires emotional purity. You cannot use distance to punish, only to preserve. Punishment comes from ego. Preservation comes from intelligence. You distance yourself not to inflict pain, but to protect your peace. That distinction keeps your power clean. When your silence becomes a mirror for others to face themselves, you've reached mastery. They adjust their pace, their tone, their decisions, all to avoid losing your calm approval. That's authority. You never demanded obedience, they offered it to protect the connection. People will begin to test your boundaries. They'll provoke you to measure your consistency. Every reaction they pull from you teaches them how to control you. That's why you must never let anyone decode your emotional rhythm. Be kind but unreadable. Be polite but unpredictable. Let people feel your warmth but never know your temperature. When they think they've figured you out, change rhythm. When they expect you to react, stay silent. When they expect silence, surprise with calm precision. Rhythm, distance, and silence, those are your weapons. Use them not to manipulate, but to create gravity. Gravity doesn't force planets to orbit. It simply exists with such density that nothing can escape it. That's what you become: dense energy, quiet certainty, emotional gravity. You no longer chase power, you become its source. You walk into a room and the air shifts slightly. People sense that something has changed even if they can't explain what. That's influence beyond words, the result of disciplined restraint, cultivated rhythm, and selective presence. But silent command isn't just about others, it's also about yourself. You must learn to apply this same rhythm and distance internally. When your mind races, slow it down deliberately. When emotion surges, step back mentally and observe. Create distance between stimulus and response. That space is where control lives. That's where power is born. In the fraction of a second, between what happens and how you choose to respond. The average person reacts instantly. The powerful let the moment pass through them before deciding if it deserves energy. Most things don't. This internal distance is your throne. Sit on it quietly, guard it with awareness. The more you practice it, the more nothing external can touch you. You realize that you don't need to fight, because nothing can truly reach you unless you open the gate. And when you don't, the world exhausts itself trying. You become a mystery that can't be solved, a calm that can't be broken, a rhythm that can't be matched. That's when you've won, not through conquest but through control. Not by overpowering, but by outlasting. Not through visibility, but through influence. Because in the end, those who shout the loudest are heard briefly. Those who move silently are remembered forever. At a certain point, you stop playing the power game and start embodying it. You no longer need to remind yourself to stay calm, to stay unreadable, to stay disciplined. It becomes instinct. Power has settled into your bones. You've moved beyond tactics into essence. You no longer practice restraint. You are restraint. You no longer use silence. You are silence. And it's in this final stage that your presence begins to transcend confrontation entirely. You stop needing to win because you no longer see others as opponents. You see them as energy, moving patterns that you can direct through stillness. This is what it means to win without fighting, not evading conflict, but transcending it. You exist on a higher frequency, one where reaction no longer rules, where ego has dissolved into composure. Most people never reach this level because they're addicted to drama. They need conflict to feel alive. They mistake adrenaline for purpose. But when you master the art of winning without fighting, you step out of that cycle completely. Your calm becomes your statement. Your distance becomes your protection. Your silence becomes your language. You've learned that chaos cannot touch what doesn't respond to it. That is the hidden law of power. Resistance feeds energy. Indifference dissolves it. You stop reacting to insults, provocation, manipulation, because you know those things only work when they find a target. When they don't, they vanish. You've become a void, a calm, intelligent void that consumes noise and gives nothing back. People don't know how to deal with that. They're conditioned to fight friction with friction. When they encounter stillness, they lose their footing. They start to question themselves, their certainty, their dominance. You destabilize them without aggression. You weaken them without violence. You defeat them without confrontation. That is mastery, but true mastery requires humility. You must never let your calm turn into arrogance. The moment you use stillness to humiliate, you corrupt it. Power must be precise, not performative. The difference is intention. Performative power seeks validation. It wants others to see its strength. True power doesn't care who sees it, it simply is. It doesn't flaunt, it doesn't chase recognition. It moves quietly, reshaping reality through presence alone. That's where transformation happens, when you stop seeking to influence and simply live as influence. You become the kind of person others sense before they understand. They can't explain why your presence feels different, only that it does. You're unhurried in a world of panic. You're composed in a world of reaction. You are disciplined in a world of indulgence. You are mystery in a world of exposure. The world can't resist what it can't define. You've learned that the secret to dominance isn't expansion, it's reduction. The more you remove, the stronger you become. Fewer words, fewer reactions, fewer appearances, fewer explanations. Every unnecessary thing you eliminate sharpens your presence. You become distilled power, condensed, silent, effortless. The world chases more, but power always moves toward less. Less noise, more impact. Less motion, more direction. Less emotion, more control. This simplicity is terrifying to those who rely on chaos. They try to provoke you to return to their level, to make you visible, predictable, reactive. But you don't. You remain still, like deep water, reflective, vast, unfathomable. They project their fears onto your silence, and you let them. Because you understand now that perception is a weapon best wielded through patience. You don't need to convince anyone who you are. The way people feel around you is enough proof. Your silence becomes a mirror that reveals their truth. Your absence becomes a reminder of your value. Your calm becomes a standard they measure themselves against. You've moved from playing the game to designing it. That's the final transformation, when power stops being something you use and becomes something you radiate. But this radiance isn't loud. It's subtle. It moves through rooms like gravity, invisible yet undeniable. It's not charisma, not charm. It's presence. Charisma makes people like you. Presence makes them respect you. Charm attracts attention. Presence commands it. You've learned that attention is cheap, but respect is rare. And respect only comes to those who can exist without needing it. The moment you no longer chase respect, you embody it. This is how you win without fighting, and by no longer needing to win. You've become the center others revolve around. You dictate energy through rhythm, tone, absence. You lead not through force, but through example. You no longer impose order, you inspire it. You no longer demand loyalty, you evoke it. Because people crave the calm they feel when they're near you. That's the ultimate paradox of the power game. The less you do, the more you control. You've turned restraint into art, silence into speech, absence into gravity. Every encounter now bends toward your energy because you've removed yourself from the emotional marketplace entirely. You've stopped reacting, and in doing so, you've made everyone else respond to you. That's the quiet empire of psychological mastery. And here's the final truth. Power doesn't come from domination. It comes from understanding. The more you understand human nature, the fears, the insecurities, the desires, the less you need to fight. Because you see everything before it unfolds. You anticipate rather than react. You adapt rather than resist. And that adaptability is your invisible armor. You no longer need control because everything you touch aligns naturally with your intention. You're no longer forcing outcomes. You're guiding them subtly through energy, through awareness, through calm. That is the end game, the stage where fighting becomes obsolete because victory is inevitable. It's not about winning anymore. It's about maintaining inner order. The external world mirrors that order back to you. That's why people start treating you differently. They sense that your emotions are not up for negotiation. You've become too stable to manipulate, too grounded to provoke, too silent to decode. They respect you because you respect yourself. That's the purest form of power. It doesn't need applause, it doesn't need recognition, it doesn't need noise. It just exists. And the longer it exists, the stronger it becomes. Because real power is cumulative. Every moment of silence, every refusal to react, every act of patience compounds into an aura that no one can fake. You've become the quiet force, untouchable, unreadable, unforgettable. The kind of presence that lingers long after you leave. And in that silence, people hear their own truth. They realize what you already know, that strength doesn't shout, control doesn't rush, and power never begs. It simply waits. And waiting is the ultimate victory, because while the world fights, you endure. While others chase validation, you embody certainty. While they shout to be heard, your silence echoes longer. So remember this final law: to win without fighting is not to avoid conflict, but to make conflict irrelevant. It's to become so composed, so aware, that nothing external can disturb your internal empire. That's what makes you untouchable. That's what makes you powerful. Silence isn't the absence of power, it's the proof of it. If this truth resonates, it's because you've already started to wake up. Subscribe, because real power doesn't shout, it whispers.